Up to the 30, the 20, 10, 5. Torrey Horton back to the end zone.
48-yard play. Guess who? Body up the middle, making another move to the outside. 15, 10, end zone again.
Keeps it. Nice move by Brown. He's got space. He's got 6. 35-yard touchdown for Byron Brown. A record-setting night for the South Florida quarterback.
Down so far, a little bit of a high snap. Genty right up the middle. Genty has room. Ashton Genty, give him 6.
Second and long. Lagar tries to fit it in. Runnels, it does. Runnels stays up. The Suns offense 4-3 wins. Incredible effort for Runnels.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive and the Week 6 Waiver Wire. Honey, I am your host, Justice. I am doing this solo. Both Luke and I are both out of town this week, and we both couldn't find time to get this done, so I'm going to do it solo this week. And you're going to have to bear with me. There are no graphics for the Waiver Wire this week. And I'm only going to give you 5 names at each position. Normally we try and give you 10, but just kind of a weird week. We're both out of town, have a lot of other stuff going on, and just trying to get you guys some content, get you guys some waiver wire ideas. And so sorry we have to sacrifice graphics and not quite have as many, but things should be back to normal next week. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please leave a rate and a review. That is the best way to support us. Go on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. Every time we release a video, you'll be notified and stay up to date on the latest in the G5 college football world. So moving on to some waiver options this week after through 6 weeks. All these options are 30% owned or less on Fantrax. We're going to start with the quarterbacks, and I'm going to give you them in order of my preference of what I would do if it was my team. And number one has got to be quarterback Hajj-Malik Williams, UNLV. Only had the job for 2 weeks now, but he has gone gangbusters both through the air and on the ground. Just over 30 points per game in those 2 games, and he's got to be the top option if he is still available on waivers in your league. Number 2 for me, and it's a close number 2, is Tyler Huff at Jacksonville State. Tyler Huff has come on strong the last couple of weeks, kind of seizing that job there for the Gamecocks. And like Hajj-Malik Williams, he is a dual threat quarterback. He actually, he dominated Kennesaw State on the ground this past week. It's over 170 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing. Personally, for me, number 3 would be Brendan Lewis. Nevada, again, because he's a dual threat. If you're in a 6-point passing touchdown league, it kind of changes things. But, for most of my leagues are 4-point passing touchdowns. And so I always tend to lean towards those dual threat options. And Brendan Lewis having a phenomenal year there for Nevada, both in the air and on the ground. Number 4, Ben Wooldridge, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. Ben, not quite the dual threat ability that the top 3 options have, but he does have some, and so he does give you some yards. He's not a 0 in the rushing department, and he also gets things done through the air. Louisiana has looked like one of the better teams in the Sun Belt West. And rounding out the options this week, Christian Veillere, Georgia State. Georgia State is a surprise team this year, The rushing game doesn't seem to be up to par, but the passing game for the Panthers seems to be getting it done on a weekly basis, and Christian Veillere is the guy leading this offense. All right, we'll move over to the running backs, and the first one I want to mention is Jaden Nixon at Western Michigan. We did see Jalen Buckley come back this week, but that didn't seem to slow Nixon down. He was one of the top producers available. He had 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. Well, in the game this past week in week 6. I wish I had answers for you what's going on with that Western Michigan backfield in terms of what to expect moving forward, but I don't know. information out of Western Michigan is extremely limited. But Nixon, we'll see. I don't know if they're just trying to ease Jalen Buckley back, or if Nixon's just looking better at this point. Not sure. But if he's available, it'd be tough to leave him sitting out there on waivers. Number 2 for me is Floyd Chalk Jr., San Jose State. He's leading that Spartan rushing attack. He's getting the goal line carries. San Jose State is scoring a lot. The offense moves a lot, plays a lot of plays. And so Floyd Chalk is definitely someone I'm interested in if he is available. Number 3 for me is Ahmad Hardy, UL Monroe. UL Monroe, surprise team there in the Sun Belt, just beat JMU. Ahmad Hardy is a big part of that. Their goal or their game plan is to play solid defense and run the heck out of the ball with Ahmad Hardy. He scored in every game this year except for the game against Texas, and he's had a couple 100-yard games as well. True freshman Ahmad Hardy. He's been our freshman of the week the last 2 weeks, and if he's available on waivers, I'm definitely someone that I'm going to be looking at and snatching up if I need some running back help. Next up, Razul Faison, Utah State. He's kind of taken over that backfield the last 3 weeks. Prior to this past week against Boise State, he had 200-yard games back to back. And rounding out my recommendations for running back is AJ Turner, Marshall. He's doing it on limited touches. It did this past week. He did his rush attempts, did go up this week. Maybe it's a sign of things to come. He's looked like the best running back for the Thundering Herd each and every week. He leads them in rushing. And I just feel like it's a matter of time before he is getting the volume that he deserves based on his results to date. Moving over to the wide receivers, probably the top option for me is Jaden Williams at Texas State. He's transferred from Boston College. He's looking like, the top option, a very productive option there for the Bobcats, and has a good connection there with Jordan McLeod. Next up, Coleman Owen for Ohio. He is the top option of Parker Navarro. He's one of the top target guys. He doesn't have a lot of touchdowns, but he's getting those targets and receptions for the Ohio Bobcats. We are now in MAC play, and I just look for him to eat in the MAC. Number 3 for me is Raylan Sharp, Fresno State. He has been a target hog the last 3 weeks. I believe it's like 31 targets and 16 targets in 2 weeks ago. And when they had a bye this past week, but 2 weeks ago when they last played, he had 16 targets. I expect a big game this week out of Raylan Sharp as they get into a shootout against Washington State. Next up, Christian Veilleur's top target, Ted Hurst from Georgia State. He doesn't get a lot of targets, a lot of receptions, but he has an incredible ADOT. He's he's the deep threat. He's good for 70, 80 yards, or probably a touchdown on average per week. Next up, Eastern Michigan wide receiver Oren Singleton. He's been we've talked about him for the last couple of weeks. He just continues to get it done for the Eagles as the top option for Cole Schneider. Moving over to the tight ends, number 1 for me would be John Michael Gillenborg, Wyoming. He is the roommate of Evan Svoboda. He was hurt. I think people forgot about him. He is now back. He's been healthy for the last couple of weeks, and he's been leading that Wyoming Cowboys offense, passing offense, and I look for that to continue. He's definitely, if you need a tight end, he would be my first choice to add. Next up for me would be Jake Newell, Akron. He hasn't done anything too impressive, but he's getting 3 catches, 4 catches, 40 yards a game. 2 weeks ago, he had 11 targets. Love to see that. I think he's going to continue to eat as they play these MAC defenses. Next up would be Dorian Fleming, another target for Christian Veilleur. He's just super steady, 4 or 5 catches, 40, 50 yards a game. Next up, Anthony Torres. We've talked about him. He's the tight end king there for the Toledo Rockets and tight ends. I think it's like 4 or 5 targets a game. He's only getting like 2 or 3 catches, but he's getting, it's like, I think he's got a touchdown every week but one. He is a big factor in the red zone for Toledo and a favorite of quarterback Tucker Gleason. And rounding out the tight end options is Terrence Carter at Louisiana. He's kind of picked things up the last several weeks as a top option for Ben Wooldridge. Again, he's available in most, if not, every single one of your leagues. And Terrence Carter is a tight end that you should be looking at if you need tight end help. All right. Again, sorry for no graphics this week. Apologize for not having 10 names at each position. We usually only give you 5 at tight end anyway. But we'll be back. Things will be back to normal next week, next Monday night. You can catch Luke and I at approximately 10:30 p.m. Eastern. We thank everyone for your support. If you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you are listening to us in podcast form, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. And thank you all for your support. And until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.